Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the second dev server for update Danger Zone, and I thought we would have a look at the ZTZ99A again. The reason for this is because this vehicle has changed quite a lot since the first dev server. They've added a bunch of different stuff to it, and therefore it is kind of a new vehicle and therefore deserves a new review. When it comes to the ZTZ, you'll find it after the ZTZ99A, which will still be at 10.7, where the ZTZ99A sits itself at 11.0. The reason is there are some quite nice upgrades over the ZTZ99A on this vehicle, starting with the gun. Now, the gun is the ZPT98, and you may think, well, what's such a big upgrade over that? Because, well, this is also the ZPT98 as well. Well, the rounds fired out of it are the nice little upgrade this thing gets. It gets access to the DTC10125. Now, this round pens slightly more than the DTW125. We're talking about 10 to 15 millimeters worth of penetration, which is quite nice. And also, you might see that it also has access to a dozer blade now, so gives it a little bit more use in general. The thermals as well are not just for the gunner, but they're also for the tank commander as well, so that will be more useful for people who use the commander sight, and it gets access to all the nice bells and whistles that you see from these high echelon vehicles. The LWSLR, for example, then also access to smoke grenades, ESS, and all of that other stuff. But the fact is, you get a rank 1 APF SDS, you get a rank 3 one, and you get a rank 4 one. This is fantastic for the vehicle, and this should be a standard for all top-tier vehicles, or at least 2 rounds should be the standard for them, so nobody has to suffer with the Heat FS grind for too long. The general armor composition of this vehicle hasn't changed that much. It still has the FY4 ERA, which offers a little bit of chemical protection and a little bit of kinetic protection. You can see a lot of it on the turret and also underneath. There isn't too much in general. You know, you have obviously the ERA bricks, and then you have 20 millimeters of armor under it. So maybe the armor isn't fully modeled yet. We'll have to see going forward if it's going to have anything else. It does also have this composite armor though underneath the ERA, which gives it 700 millimeters of external composite armor with nearer elements, and also RHA of 20 millimeters overall. There isn't too much on the upper glacis though, or the lower glacis, so this vehicle will have exactly the same weak points as all of the other tanks of its nature. Low glacis, driver's port, and then also the breach. So just shoot center mass and don't hit the upper glacis, and you'll be able to nuke this thing just like every other MBT which is designed like it, and also a lot of NATO MBTs as well, if I'm honest with you. When we have a look at the internals, you got a 3-man crew, so you got the driver in the front, a gunner, and also a commander who does have fire controls. So even if the gunner gets taken out, this thing can shoot back. The commander's optics is pretty nice, 3 times to 10.7, and then the gunner optics are 6 times to 11 times, which is fantastic for the vehicle, meaning that generally you'll be able to, you know, be pretty effective at long ranges with the laser rangefinder as well. Another thing to note is this thing might get an APS at some point, at least a dazzler when it comes to it, so we'll have to see if that ever happens, but at least right now on the dev server it doesn't. It also, for the 125mm, has the standard autoloader that you see on a lot of vehicles. You can see this is the horizontal loader, so at least it isn't the vertical one, so it takes up less space, but also at the same time, if you're shooting low glacis, you'll blow this thing up. If you're shooting through the road wheel, you'll blow this thing up. If you're shooting through the side, you'll definitely blow this thing up. So it's kind of just the standard unfortunate way that the ammo is set in vehicles like this. The reload is 7.1 seconds, which is pretty standard across the board. When you have a look at the ZTZ99s, they all have the same one. Kind of sucks, because when you have a look at some of the Soviet machines, such as the T80U, that actually has a 6.5 second reload, and the T80BVM has a 6.5 as well. The T70B3 though, or the T72B3 still sits at 7.1, so the Chinese vehicle, the 99A, is much more comparable to that machine in general. I wish that this machine had a little bit better reload, but c'est la vie. The gun depression isn't great, but it does have quite a low profile, so isn't too much of an issue overall, and also has some extra armor on the back of the turret in the form of more FY4, just like the other vehicles. You also have this slat armor, so against stuff such as heat, the turret is at least well protected, but not really the bottom at all. Looking at the engine, it is a 1500 horsepower engine, so now we're up to a decent standard of size, but the main thing that the ZTZ99A gets over the other vehicles in the Chinese tech tree is not just the better round, but also this transmission. This transmission kind of evolutionizes the vehicle. It makes it so much better than its previous ones. It's kind of like when you go from the Merkava Mark III to the Mark IV. It means that you can actually reverse. Instead of being stuck around 7 kilometers an hour, you are now up to 34 kilometers an hour, which is a big deal for this vehicle because it means you can peak, bang, and go back, and then go again and again and again. Something that is very key at high tiers is being able to reposition quickly and also get out of the line of fire if you find yourself inside of it. And when it comes to the ZTZ99, now you're able to, with the 34 kilometers an hour, if you get shot in the turret and you get breached or you take damage, you can roll back a lot easier. So you can pop smoke and get away quickly, just like NATO MBTs generally can. So that is a big buff to this thing, compared to a lot of other vehicles, which are very similar to it. One of the things personally that I really enjoyed about the T80 series once I got to the T80U was the fact that it had that reverse gear, and it meant that you could get out of dodge very quickly compared to what you could do before. And it just improved the experience of playing it so much more compared to its predecessors, where when it came to the predecessors, it just hurt trying to get out of the way. So just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, you know, you can take a shot on something and then at the same time, let's say you want to reposition, you want to do it quickly, you can actually do that, which is pretty nice. So once again, also really good thermals on the sight, so Gen 2, which is pretty good. It's also got a hell of a loud bang when it fires, which is at least kind of interesting. And then at the same time, you have the thermals for the good old Commander. You can also use Commander controls if you want to. So you can run everything from there, which is quite lovely. And just the general mobility of this thing is going to be improved quite a lot. It gets two smoke things, which is nice. And it just means in general that you can have a pretty decent time. Also with the good old digger, you can get yourself into the I suppose a defensive position, which is nice. The reverse means that you can get there pretty quickly and you can sort it out. I don't see this used that often, and to be honest with you, I haven't used it that often either, but I've used it a little bit to be able to cover low glacises of Soviet vehicles, which has been quite nice. So I might use it more for this machine as well. Has a beautiful shell ejection, and also just generally I'm happy to see this. I'm really hoping that China in general kind of flourishes over the next few years, and I'm pretty sure it will. It just needs a little bit of help with a few more vehicles added, an AA, some more MBTs, and also some CAS elements, which we'll see before. Looks like I have a turret stuck under me, which is a bit of an issue. But as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Nicholas Richardson, Elove Goat, Pyman675, Winter Scientist, Merciless Reaper, Jerry Prevolt, Megadino King, Orange Tail, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Uncle Bean, Sem Arslan, Derek R., Bareen, Lafouche, and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.